And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Happy to welcome Darren Nisley. He is from Lighthouse Ministries. Good morning.
Good morning.
Darren, Lighthouse Ministries has been serving the community for quite some time. Can you talk a little bit about what started it, the mission's been?
Sure. Yeah, the Lighthouse began in 1996. It was actually an outreach of First Mennonite Church, which is a church located in the southeast part of Canton. You don't usually find a Mennonite church in that in an urban settings, but it grew out of conversations that the congregation had. For many years, they had a ministry working with the elementary students in the neighborhood, and it seemed like for a period of 2, 3, maybe even 4 months, we had this ongoing conversation on Sunday mornings of, hey, there went Malik or Vanessa or some student that we had worked with in the past, and they were like, they were such a good Venture Club kid, like I wonder whatever happened, because they saw them in the paper for getting busted for a B&E, a breaking and entering, or maybe they saw them walking through the cemetery with some members of the local gang or something like that, and so that just spurned this awareness that and a desire to do more with the kids in the neighborhood. And so in 1996, we remodeled a building that was on the property, turned it into a youth-friendly place, and we started with 2 volunteer staff, 6 kids from the neighborhood for a junior high ministry, and I think we had $1,400 left over from the remodeling project, and so that was our budget for the first year, and that's how it started back in 1996.
Mostly an after-school program then at that point, or?
When it first started, it was a junior high ministry, and then over the years, we just slowly added things. So an after-school we had some Young Life people come and ask about starting an after-school program, so we added after school, and then we added later. We added a summer camp and a summer field trip program. And so, today we have programming that goes year-round, serving between 100 and 150 kids a year. Wow. Youth ministry clubs for elementary, junior high, and high school. We have an after-school program that runs for 28 weeks out of the year, a 7-week summer day camp, a field trip program that sends kids from the neighborhood on 14 field trips throughout the summer.
Oh, wow.
So, it's just
really
it's
awesome.
Just been an amazing ride.
Southeast Canton has had an amazing ride of its own. Let's talk a little bit about the people there and some of the challenges that they face.
Sure. And that's the best place to start. It's amazing people. But the makeup of I have lived there since 1995, and it's home, and it just is just a beautiful place to live. About a third of the families are living below the poverty line. Pretty much over 98% of the families are receiving some sort of assistance to get by. So, there's a lot of challenges. We're located in a food desert. We have very few resources that most people would consider normal in where they live. Laundromats, pharmacies, banks, grocery stores, all that kind of thing. They're just not, and no restaurants. So it's very, very difficult for a community to have a sense of identity and positive self-image when those things are lacking.
And like what you say, there is a strong sense of community. People who live in Southeast Canton, some have been there generations and
Absolutely.
Love it and love their neighbors.
Yeah.
How do they get by without these essentials?
Well, you just have to travel out, but
But some do not have transportation.
That's correct. So you have to use public transportation or get a ride with a friend. But and so maybe some of that is how community is built. But I think there are a lot of churches in the Southeast, and of course there's the Lighthouse, and there is a public library, and those are things that do sort of become these spaces where people meet and are helpful in building community. And we think that the Lighthouse has definitely been part of building community in the Southeast, and
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the idea of taking my laundry onto a bus
Yeah.
and going to a laundromat. And then, okay, that's one way to transport it dirty in a bag, but how do you carry clean clothes home on a bus? Is this someone's reality?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it absolutely is many people's reality, but people are also very creative and
Yes.
have lots of capacity for figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's no laundromats in the Southeast. So if you don't have a washer and dryer and you need to get somewhere, you got to figure it out.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You've maintained great relationships, and it does say something that, it's one thing to drive in and minister to people and then drive home, but to live there and to do life together. How do you make that work?
Boy, I tell you, I have people who will talk to me and make comments like, it's been, it must be such a sacrifice to live in that neighborhood. And I honestly don't feel that way at all. Like, I love the neighborhood I live in. I love the people that I call my neighbors. That is not part of what I would consider a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. It is just what seems normal. And there's a beauty in that. I mean, it's like for anybody, it's becoming rooted, and this is home. So
not everyone can say they know their neighbors.
Well, that's true.
And you really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have. It's a beautiful sense of community that has happened.
So the kids come in now. What ages are you serving now?
So we have programming that serves basically for students in grades 1 through 12.
Wow.
So, yeah. So.
And what's the difference by figuring out what a first grader needs and what a senior in high school needs?
Sure. Well, our mission, and this is a little bit of a mouthful, but our mission is we want to support families by walking alongside the youth in our neighborhood, providing safe, holistic, and effective opportunities for them to understand their God-given giftedness and their potential for impacting the world around them. So that is at the core of everything we do. So, of course, that looks different if you are talking about unpacking gifts and making a difference to a high schooler in a high school youth ministry versus, a first, second, or third grader in our after-school program. But, at the younger ages, we're definitely trying to expose them to as many different options as possible. Mm-hmm. So, like our fourth and fifth graders, every fourth and fifth grader in our after-school program is enrolled in our Business Builders Club. And so they all get to start their own small businesses. Cool. They get paired up with a business mentor. They have to make a business pitch to our board to qualify for a $50 loan to get their business started. Like these are the experiences that we want the kids to have, because we believe that there are business owners that live in our neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Okay? And we believe that there are kids that fall in love with science. So the science lessons we do in our garden are meant to touch the kids that have the gifts for science and that are in love with science and maybe don't know it yet, And we have art classes, for the, so all of those things. It's how do we help children unpack the gift that God has intended them to be.
I love that part of your mission statement. Is there an age, because, when you're working with the little ones, sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
Then there becomes maybe an age where they've been beaten down enough that nothing feels possible anymore, or at least they don't see any hope for themselves. How do you get in there and do some kind of an intervention before that happens?
I think it is just all about seeing the value that every child has, that God looks at every child with, and understands. We have some kids that have gone through some super rough times, and not every child, makes it out with a clear purpose and have identified a vocation they want to pursue and that kind of thing. But, there are students who really have grabbed hold of some things that they have found in their own life, whether it's, acting or drawing or whatever it is, or, just this idea that, hey, I do want to own a business someday, it is, and I guess too, part of our approach is this idea that God's calling isn't necessarily a vocation.
Right.
God's calling for all of us is just to be faithful. So how do we build that into that piece too, as we challenge the kids that no matter what they end up doing, to be reminded that they need to be faithful in all that they do.
How do you get a child to take a second look at themselves and see themselves through God's eyes rather than perhaps other eyes who have told them they're not as good as?
Yeah.
When He says something completely different.
As I think of our staff and the culture that we want to have present at the Lighthouse, it is really about like just how incredibly important and special they are. So yeah, we do have kids that have been beaten down, who have been told that they're nothing, and sometimes I'll be working with a child who refuses to do something, right? Like they don't want to do their homework, or they meet a tough math problem or a tough situation, right? And they'll talk about themselves in a way that is very demeaning and like, I'm just stupid, I'm just dumb, so-and-so has always called me dumb and they're right and that thing. And I'll have a conversation with them that looks something like this. It's like, okay, I get it. You don't believe in yourself right now, but guess what? I'm going to believe in you now, okay? And I'm going to believe in you strong enough that I am not going to let you do this to yourself, okay?
You just watch them light up.
And then there will be a time when so until you're ready to believe in yourself, I'm going to believe in you for you, right? And we're going to make this happen because you are smart enough to do this thing. And so we're going to sit down and work this through. And, I think that's, this idea that God is bigger than us. Well, I think as God's people, we need to be bigger too, and believe beyond what the people that we're trying to be helpful to. Sometimes we have to believe beyond where they're at, because sometimes we can see the gifts before they can, and just challenging them to
with this kind
open
of
their eyes.
family feeling, though, and the fact that they do belong to something then and can feel a part of something. Are you seeing maybe less? Okay, I'm asking this hoping that I know the answer. Are you seeing less gang activity? It seems like they're wanting to join a gang because they need to belong. There's a sense of family there.
Yeah. I cannot put my finger on exactly why the gangs have diminished, but when the Lighthouse first started, there were some very active gangs, very large gangs, and kids were being recruited to join them.
Sure.
But there have been a lot of efforts by the police department and other law enforcement agencies to really, clamp down on gang activity, and so that's helped. But then you also have this interesting dynamic of, back in the day, we would have kids, freaking out at the after school program out in front, and they'd be like maybe flipping over a table and yelling at a staff. And there was one time where a gang member was walking by and he stopped, got out of his car, and came out and like lit into the kid because he was like, this place cares about you.
Yeah.
And there is no reason for you to be disrespectful.
Wow.
And like, what a story, right? What a story, because we were teaching things that were so like directly opposite of what the choices that he was making, but he very much knew that for the kids in this neighborhood, he wanted that path for them,
a better
rather
way
than necessarily his path. Wow. So I'm in no way can I say, oh, the Lighthouse, destroyed gang activity. That would not be true. But have we contributed to that? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're speaking with Darren Nisley from Lighthouse Ministries. Going to take a short break here. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.